people and treating people like they are less than human. Period. End of discussion. And the fact that you make excuses for that is disgusting.
Especially if you're going to come from some kind of objective. Wait 1 second. Especially if you're going to come from some kind of objective standard. Now, I disassociate from the objective-subjective argument that much because I don't think meta-ethics have a damn thing to do with how we should treat people. That would be normative, right? Mm-hmm. So, but if you're going to claim somehow there's something that is always going to be wrong, if there's a moral proposition that is the case, that is always true, that it's bad to do something, right? It's wrong to do something as an objective standard, right? Then how could you say that slavery is ever going to be good if God somehow condones it? And he is condoning it by regulating it. I think that's a fair argument to make. If you regulate something, you're tacitly, by some tacit admission, saying that you're condoning it, right? But you're now, SJ says that God doesn't condone slavery, and there's a problem there. You don't see it?
I don't think God is in fact condoning it. I don't. I think this is a document, inspiration, where God is working in the lives of individuals, and they're doing the best that they can with the limited amount of knowledge of God that they do. And I think that limited amount of knowledge of God that they do have gave them the resources to regulate it. But down through the centuries, we have a more profound and theologically sophisticated understanding of what God and equality and rights and responsibilities are. So now we can look back through the historical process, which has been colored with, lenses colored with theology and covered with Jesus and morality and things like that. So we look at this through a whole different perspective than what was going back then.
I gotta ask this. I have to. Please let me ask this question. Is slavery a sin?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, so
we should
God allowed sin?
We should not enslave a person.
How did God allow sin? If God is against sin, why did he allow sin? Is God supposed to be against sin?
Why did he raise it?
He allowed people to. I mean, he didn't have anything. He did normally. If he's the objective standard, he's going to tell people what sin is and what is sinful. In this case, he's allowing sin. He's like, go for it. You do your thing. You don't see a contradiction.
Stephen Kyle?
I don't know. Well,
yes.
let me answer that.
Hold on.
I've been reading.
Frustrated Atheist. Yes. What? Hold on.
I just want to let y'all know that, Stephen Kyle, that I'm completely against y'all killing anyone. But after this, I'm going to send y'all instructions on how to do it. Okay?
That's
basically what God did.
That really progressed. That really progressed the dialogue.
That's exactly what God. But that's exactly what God did. He said, you're saying he's against this, but here is a on how to do this.
Yeah,
that's exactly what your God says.
Yeah. I don't condone it, but if you're going to do it, here's how you're supposed to do it.
Steve, what I've been reading recently is a book, another book by Rodney Stark called Discovering God, how it goes through the various beliefs and the various history, and talks about how these things originated. I think through the historical process, again, I hate to keep going over this, but if you just look at reality, let's say we just look at reality or one historical event really up close, like a high photograph lens, we're only going to see certain things, certain details. If we take a step back and keep taking a step back, we're going to see more of a context. Similar to as we step back and look at a picture, we're going to see the whole forest and not just some of the particular trees in the forest. Mm-hmm. So maybe there was an overall plan rather than just making a propositional statement that slavery is evil that we could rationally understand. Maybe to condemn slavery or have slavery eventually condemned, maybe it takes something far more profound.
He condemned
Let
a lot
me give you a better
things.
analogy. Let me give you a better analogy, okay? You have a pristine, what you think is a pristine ham sandwich, right? And as you look at that ham sandwich, one slice of the bread is molded and hard as a rock. Now, even though you've taken a step back and you've seen the whole sandwich, the fact that moldy piece of bread on that sandwich makes it uneatable. It's the same thing. Slavery is mold on your religion sandwich. And are you still going to eat it knowing that mold's there? No, you're not.
I think we should. I think we should respectfully. I think we've been talking about slavery now for at least a half hour, and we were way off topic from where we started. Is there any way we could go back?
I doubt it now.
So, I mean, I think if just from my perspective and from Joshua's perspective, I think the idea is if we're to follow the Bible, we're to follow Jesus' example, and I mentioned that before. So.
Well, yeah, and why doesn't Jesus' example supersede the Old Testament?
Because Jesus confirms the Old Testament because he says, I have not come to change the old law. He upholds the Old Testament. He doesn't disavow it.
Oh, no.
The entire point of this conversation.
He came to fulfill
No one ever says...
No. He came to fulfill the Old Testament. Well,
right.
He said that
the Old Testament. That's what Jesus said. Actually.
Okay, what does that mean? Did he disavow the Old Testament?
No, he fulfilled 330 prophecies in the Old Testament.
He said these commandments boil down to two other commandments. That if you don't look at it in just a superficial way, you look at it through two commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart, and what was the second commandment, CJ? I apologize.
It's love the Lord thy God with your heart, soul, and mind, and treat others as you shall be treated, as you would want to be treated.
Yes, and that was the fulfillment of the Old Testament. Thank you, sir.
But the thing is, whenever ask this question, what I was saying was, when the person asked him this question, which ones are the most important to follow? And that's why I pulled them down. It wasn't to do with, do away with some of these or whatever. He said, this is what they all say, and they're all worth following. Yeah. So, in other words, the entire Old Testament is worth following. Still.
So I think maybe the modern skeptic, in my opinion, is looking at it through a lens of superficiality and not really taking what Jesus says and summarizing it in those two commandments. Maybe possibly they're not taking it in a sophisticated way. That's my answer.
The spin that you are putting on this is incredible.
Yeah, you're basically saying that everything you've had so far, you have a lot of appeal to authority. I've noticed. None of us have appeal to authority. I can spew out names just like anybody else, right?
I quote.
You quote. Quoting is not an effective means for argumentation. Okay. Now I understand you should quote every so often. When you're going into a debate, if you want to lead an initial quote, right? That sets the tone. I'm all for that. If you want to close with one, if your entire argument is based and contingent upon other people's writings, then the person you're having a discussion with, the interlocutor, in this case, like Frustrated Atheist, you're not having a discussion or a dialectic with him. He's having a dialectic with these people that wrote these books. This is why we avoid having conversations.
I think I'm having
argumentium adds to what somebody else.
I was having a discussion with all three of y'all. I was having a discussion with all three of y'all. Y'all were leveling charges, and I was trying my best. And I'm saying, very well-read and researched individuals that study and teach on this subject see that there's more nuance than what this infidel atheist approach to the Old Testament shows.
I have to throw the bullshit flag. Let me tell you, we have a lot of atheists with PhDs in biblical scholarship, a lot that we deal with. Now, how do you reconcile that with your narrative? Because they're not this uninformed, uneducated infidel that you make them out to be.
Okay,
and they disagree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I should not say that. They can certainly have credentials.
You have different positions.
We
all agree people's positions can differ. That's why we have these discussions. Yes, you're right. You're right. We can differ intellectually, but I'm saying that there is an intellectual viewpoint that can still believe that God is wholly good and he's all powerful and all knowing, and still believe in progressive revelation and that he regulated slavery.
I still think that's possible. I think slavery is a sin, but I think it's the whole historical process to today through our cultural innovations and institutions shaped by theology that shows it to be sinful, not just a particular historical example from the past.
I'm not going to disagree with you too much on that. I mean, there's reasons why we can look at things either in modernity or historically, but that doesn't negate the points that Kyle is making in regards to, if this is what you argue, these are the natural consequences that follow from that, right? Now, you could try to be an apologist and try to rationalize them away somehow, but some of the methods you've used to do so don't seem very convincing by any stretch of imagination, and I'd actually go on a limb and say they're pretty bad, even for a
you can't explain them away.
Well-educated college person. You're obviously articulate. You're obviously well-educated. Not going to diminish that, right? You're not a dumb person, right? But a bad argument is a bad argument, and I think that what's happening is, and I'm going to be objective here. When people watch these kind of things, they want to see how the argument unfolds. They want to see who's making a better argument. You could be the most intellectually intelligent, educated person in the world, but if they think that you're making a bad argument and they call you on it, that kind of needs to be addressed, right? And that's kind of what happened initially with SJ and Frustrated Atheist. They thought that each other were having bad arguments, and yet I think they were kind of talking past each other. I don't think SJ was making the claims she was making, and I will go out of my way to make sure we don't straw man somebody, right? So that's kind of the reason why we have these discussions. But thank you for letting me.
Yeah, and I want to say, I appreciate it. I hope we can move on to another subject to keep the argument progressing. However, I do believe that a lot of these issues are deeper than just surface level portraits. For example, history is different from science, as you know. No matter what we do, we're not going to be able to repeat the Battle of Waterloo, are we? It's just a different nature. One goes with repeatable objects in us trying to learn about science. One goes with the individual particular historical examples. And to understand the full history, we have to take a step back and look at the overall cultural context of which these events happened.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to conflate history with science, so I agree with you on that. So we have a mutual agreement we can kind of like move on from.
Well, I think that shows that maybe we should be very mindful of condemning the Old Testament because of a particular passage.
Well, I don't condemn anything. What I do is I analyze the arguments. So I'm analyzing what am I reading, what is being put forth here, and I like to have personally consistent positions. Anybody who's known me for a long time will tell you I want my epistemology to be sound. I want to have positions that are coherent. I want to have a coherent framework. Do I succeed in that always? No, none of us ever do. We always have tensions of different positions that somehow don't mix, right? I mean, for example, like when SJ had mentioned fascism relating to Marxism, like my cackles on my hair on the back of my neck kind of like stood up because I'm like, wait, fascism, if I understand it, is actually against Marxism. But when we have philosophical type discussions and theological talk, it falls under philosophy. You're going to have positions that are not always consistent, but the goal is to try to be, and that's what I'm, as a person in these discussions, try to suss out. I want people to have a coherent framework, and that's when we kind of pounce and go, wait a minute, you're saying one thing, but over here you're saying something else. This is why when we're talking about God and having an argument that God is the objective moral standard. Okay, and by the way, I'm not against objective morality, just FYI. But if God is going to be the objective standard, then he has to place that position that slavery is wrong from the get-go. There's no wrong. It's right sometimes and wrong some other times.
And the thing is, that's what, like you're talking like this slavery part is just the only bad aspect of it. It's littered through the entire book examples of where that moral standard isn't hit at all. In fact, it dips below what average people here on Earth would consider moral. That truth be told, people have better moral standards than the one that's supposed to be instructing them on how to act. And it just doesn't look